York. Roll call, please.
John McLennan.
Here.
Dave Sisney.
Here.
Brian Shear.
Here.
Chris Paul.
Here.
Bill Franklin.
Here.
Joe Hustle.
Here. I need a minute to approve the meeting of March 4th, 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Claims register approval for a month of March 2026.
I'll make a motion to approve the claims register.
Second. I have a first and a second. There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unfinished business, none. New business, work properties.
Is Brian here for the?
No, I just texted him, he texted me back, and he was doing, trying to be here, but it's been away from work. So, you want me to go ahead then, or?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Ryan Barth, is asking for a facade grant for 312 South Cabin. Wants to put up some new guttering in the back. He did get, 3 quotes, 2 of them were the same. The third guy could only do 6-inch guttering, so he that really needs the 7-inch. So we really have two viable, quotes. And, the lower quote was 1948, was asking for $974 on that. With new guttering in the back.
Was it 974?
974, yes,
That would be the 15%.
what was asking for.
Anybody got any comments on that?
I have just a comment that I really like the owners to be here, but I think this is a little bit of an extension of the project that he completed that will help keep that building secure now that he's got it fixed. So in saying that, and with the history that we've had with his projects and that building, I'd make a motion to go ahead and approve the first request for those reasons.
I will add before I second that Rain Drain actually did my gutters as well. They did fantastic work. So I will second that motion.
Right, okay, I have a first and a second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next one.
Okay, building, 314, South Cabin, just needs some downspouts replaced. And obviously, while they're here, it's cheaper to do it one trip versus 2. So, at the last minute, he asked for this one as well. And, cost on that is $790. So the half of that would be $395 is what he's asking for.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and second, further discussion? If none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks. Again, Ryan texted me and said he planned on being here and just couldn't get away from work.
Thanks, Owen.
I'm sure he appreciates it a lot.
Okay, housing development update?
Once I get it up there, I got a bigger for you.
I appreciate the opportunity to join you again here today. I'm Ryan Chasey with Club 720 Development Corporation. And so I previously spoken to this group back when we started, when we were originally engaged to work alongside both the city and the Redevelopment Commission on development of the former community foundation site. you've taken ownership of. And I sent this presentation to Barb yesterday. This is
Yeah.
not new information. This is a presentation that I'm expecting most of you have seen, but Barb had informed me there are a couple new redevelopment commission members, and so I wanted to make sure that I didn't make any assumptions that folks had seen this. Just as a real brief recap before I get into the details, the role that we have played as Club 720 Development Corporation has been to walk alongside you as the community in the development of this, to number one, make sure that the end product is something that you're proud of, you feel like is needed here in the community, and really is a fit. So this is the opposite of a take it or leave it approach from a developer, right? This is what we can do.
Right.
Are you going to subsidize this or not? This is a community-led approach. And so at the initial meeting when I was here, you had identified the mayor and Barb and Brian as kind of, in our terminology, we call your joint development committee. So that's the group that we have been working with throughout what has been a lengthier than we had hoped for process, in order to do pre-development on the site and then try to come up with how is this going to move forward. And so that's been, I would really appreciate first the leadership. Brian and Barb and the mayor have been great and steadfast and good representatives of this body and the community as a whole to be able to work with. We really appreciate. I mentioned the longer than hoped for timeline. When we talked originally, the goal was come in, do a set amount of pre-development work, investigation and planning work, that would get us to a place where we could then cast the net for development partners, engage development partner, and move forward. And a couple things happened that slowed that down. One is, since we started, the housing market itself has changed fairly substantially. And that's due not to anything here, but really it's to the national economy. And so that's been one big factor. The other is, we have not, had a development partner that we felt good about recommending you move forward with. And a big part of our role and what we set up front is we want to help guard the risk of the community. And so rather than only focus on speed, we're focusing on, what's going to, at the end of the day, I'm going to feel comfortable coming back here and standing and looking you all in the eye and saying, yes, this was a success. This is what we envisioned. And so there's been a trade-off, and I just want to acknowledge it because, that is what it is. But I want to draw us back before I get into kind of where we are and our next steps to this site concept that was put together. And I know you've seen this before, but we're kind of, my clicker works here. This was prepared by MKM Architecture and Design as part of pre-development, and substantial input from your joint development committee into, what do we really feel like is going to work here, married with the countywide market potential analysis that was performed a few years back that showed quantities and types and price points of folks who want to live here. And so the idea is we blend those two things to come up with an approach that, number one, has some market data behind it to say, yes, this will work, but also feels good to you as the community leaders here saying, yeah, this is something that's going to be well received. And so I'm not going to really belabor this because it's something that you've seen before, but the end result is this development concept. And there was a mix earlier in this of different typologies that would go into this. And so that's a real strength of the development concept, right? Is we have not just one, single family detached X number of square foot that we're going to rely on selling a whole bunch of those. We're actually providing a ladder for homeownership within this development itself, where folks can start off renting, and then they can move into, there's starter type homes, and then there's higher end homes. And so we see all that. Number one, that's all needed. That's all vetted out by the market potential analysis that this is, all types of housing that can be supported. But we also recognize through that analysis and through the leadership that, there's not a lot of this new type of stock here to be able to have that on the market. And so there is value from a comp standpoint in introducing multiple new types of stock, because our goal for this is to be catalyst, right? Meaning that you are involved heavily in this to get it, and we catalyze the market, and we hope more private development follows as that market gets catalyzed and is proven out. And so the initial site concept was divided up into proposed phases. And so this has been, the phases you can see at the top left there, the amount of number of units in each of those phases. And we've had some discussion with this joint development committee about, is this phasing right? Should it be altered a little bit? And I think those are to be determined sort of questions. And so we're coming back to you today really with the recommendation that we move forward with this. And so this is what we call our go, no-go decision here. And we're recommending that we move forward. And I brought some materials here to lay out what moving forward looks like. You can take one and pass those down. So moving forward would look like moving this from a pre-development phase into a pre-construction phase. And, the intent of this, as I just talked about, would be having mixed income housing, both rental and home ownership, on a cleared site that would use donated land from the community, residential TIF, and a TIF bond. And so, that is what we've talked with the Joint Development Committee about. Moving forward looks like approving a pre-construction budget of a not to exceed amount of $526,000. And that would be used to prepare a phase A for implementation and to create a plan then for the phasing for the remaining pieces. So that you can see on the front page here, the bullet points break down what that budget would be allocated for. And the largest chunk of it would be for design and procurement of pre-construction. So taking this concept and moving that to something that could actually be bid out to get that to concept to real life for the infrastructure program. That would be the bulk of that. We are also recommending the second item there, a optimum housing market position analysis. So that would look like re-engaging the same firm, Zimmerman Volk Associates, who did your countywide market potential analysis, to have them do a site-specific analysis on this site. What's that going to give us? That would give us, first of all, updated information from what we have countywide that's several years old, but also a much more detailed plan on what this phasing looks like and the mix of units. And that's what we want to go alongside, of the pre-construction work that's going on. So we end this up with, a final plan that can then be constructed. The third item there is a pattern book for the new homes to be constructed. So pattern book meaning we want a guide, right? This is it's not just the type of units that you care about. It's also the appearance of the units and the standards of those units. And how do we govern that going forward? You're not going to be involved in this project forever. We're not going to be involved in it forever. We need to establish that for the builder partners that are engaged, whether that's one or multiple, where we have standards that they construct on that. And so that would be one of the items that's included in this pre-construction phase. Having a system integration so that we are effectively working with the architects and the folks who are going to do the infrastructure estimation to marry it all together is what that fourth bullet point is for. And then we put a small amount of testing and procurement support in there. We noted in that first paragraph, we've not done an extensive amount of soil testing on that, and so we would recommend, as we move from concept to finalization, that we do some more of that so that that can be taken in to the final planning work that's done. Because again, we're coming out of this with then, bidding this infrastructure work to be done in a phased approach. And that then leads into the full, construction, development phase of that. So,
Ryan, just to clarify, the design, procurement, and pre-construction services, does that include any underground infrastructure in that money, or is this just the plan to develop that?
this is just putting all the engineering work to put that together, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So as we walk through on the second page of this document, that first paragraph outlines, a recapture of your original countywide market potential analysis that shows that there is market potential here and why we're recommending moving forward with this. That next list of bullet points, it has the outcomes of this next phase of work. And so these closely correlate with the work itself that I just covered. But I want to be clear on to your question, Brian, what we're coming out of this with,
Yes.
and what remains to be done. So, confirming the market position, completing the updated site design and the due diligence for implementation, refining what's in the phasing of each phase, including the cost behind that. So we'll work with the financial advisor that we've already been in touch with to make sure that that is all coordinated in the phasing of the money that is needed and the ROI on that as those phasing is complete and we work to have those units be sold. Working with local builders, including Lancia Construction, who has stepped forward through this more recently in this process and said that they have an interest in being at least one of, if not a very significant builder in constructing the units here, to participate in this project. And so, and then finally, the last bullet is collaborating with B Noble, who the community has brought to the table as what we call a local Club 720 hub. So we want to not just do this work and then fingers crossed that people that work here and want to live here are going to hear about it. We actually want to be proactive, reaching out to those employers that have people commuting in and making sure they know that this is coming to market and that we actually start doing pre-sales as these are being constructed in order to make this a real seamless system and also a very effective development and quicker turnaround, which will benefit you financially as well. And so B Noble is going to be that partner. They have been undergoing, there's a regional training program that we're leading where they are being trained to do this work. And they have been at the table with most of our recent JDC meetings that we have had and have expressed a commitment to do that going forward. So that takes us then to the proposed timeline to this work. So I understand from Barb that there is some further information to be gathered on the financial side that would put an approval from this group likely to be at your May meeting, not here today. And so I built the timeline off of your May meeting, having approval, and then what would follow from that. And so we would anticipate that this work in the pre-construction would be completed by fall. And so that is something that that's our timeline at this point in time. Now, the other document that I have stapled to this is something for your review and your legal review. This is an option agreement. So if we're going to doing all of this work on site, we need to have the legal right to be able to do that work on site. And so this would put an agreement in place that we have, the option on this property. I mean, this is essentially what we have been working under informally for a year or more now. But makes it, before you make this kind of investment, I know you're gonna wanna see, the legalities buttoned up. And so, you will note on there that option agreement is for a 2-year term. And we are recommending that because, it's the anticipation that it's not just covering this pre-construction, but we're moving right into, doing the site work, and bidding that out, and that goes right into the next phase. And so if we have 6 months worth of pre-construction, we don't yet know what the timeline on that infrastructure work will be. I mean, if it's bid out over the winter and we start next year, we put 2 years in there as an estimate, but that's something we will continue to have this JDC group be the one that we primarily interact with on all these things as they come up, so that we stay on the same page. So that's kind of my overview. Happy to answer questions and talk about this, but the steps to move forward would be, approving the proposal that I've presented that has the budget, and then also, moving forward with that option agreement and improving that. So, again, happy to talk about this or answer any questions you have.
Brian, is there any way of, there's never a stupid question, right? Is there any way of saying to developers that we're willing to do these things if the interest, you know what I mean? Is there any way we could say, yeah, the RDC is willing to one, donate the land, and two, possibly fund the initial infrastructure? Does that help pique interest? Or do you feel this has to be done to even start that process? I guess is my question.
Yeah, I think, Brian, that was the attempt with the initial outreach to developers, was signaling that to them through that process to say, that, we included things in there in the property, and that was kind of the messaging behind that. Our recommendation at this point is that we move forward in a way that is going to take the development risk and decision-making authority off of the developers onto us, and that they are going to just become builders in this case, which, through conversations that we've had regionally, not just on your project over the last year, including that recent conversation with Lancia that Heather referenced at our last meeting, that seems to be something that we feel like is going to be a more effective approach to not end up where we did end up after the last round, and having something that kind of falls out.
Back to the part of the financial, and that we do have a call set up with Lisa Lee of Ice Miller and Heidi Hamspot of Baker Tilly this afternoon. Originally, I guess we had thought that parcel we had put in our ERA when we did the other side, but we didn't. We just did that when the Cousin property was annexed. But this would be another step. So that's going to be one of our first steps, is getting that in our economic revitalization area, which is just the steps and meetings, I believe, but Lisa Lee will direct us on that. And then that would make it possible for us to use our funding to be able to do this. And then I do have another question. I know originally we had talked about the regional funds, and that's what got, one involved. That are there still is that funding still a possibility to work towards this project? Is that something? Am I on that?
There are
Wasn't
some
there
regional
funding?
funds that have been made available, that will be made available this year to be knowable. I don't recall the exact amount.
Wasn't that what we had to have the commissioners do the resolution for?
We did.
Okay, yes.
The funding amount, that's something we could talk about it.
Okay.
My guess is it probably was not going to be a substantial amount of funds, because the way it's been allocated, it's divvied up by jurisdictions across the region, and it's substantial to do pre-development work. when we're looking at like a $50,000
Right.
budget to do that. And so most counties are choosing to say, we're gonna allocate this money, to help get projects started with that most at-risk work. I'm not speaking for them. I don't know that they're, how that's being decided here, but there are certain guidelines that the Strategic Development Commission is putting in place on how that can be used. And then each county is kind of deciding, how do we want to use that? And so that's a conversation we're having. I wouldn't necessarily recommend we slow this.
Oh, no, I
down to
didn't
do
mean that.
because
I
don't
just
think
meant,
it's
I didn't
gonna-
know if that could go towards the actual infrastructure
Hmm.
at some point.
Yeah, that's something we can talk to them about for sure, yeah.
Right. And I know the other thing we talked about is a potential, housing tip. Commercial for the parks that are gonna be ground units like we did for trucks, and then the housing tip. And then with that, we could do a bond to do some of the infrastructure that the taxes from that would pay for that. We wouldn't have any, would know, just like we did with the trucks, but the monies that they pay for the will be for the bond payments, so that the city doesn't have, or the redevelopment
The risk.
commission doesn't have the risk to it. It's only it would be set up so that only the money coming in from their taxes would pay that. So that's another possibility for infrastructure.
Russ, this is 526,000, mainly for engineering and pre-construction. Do we have any idea what the remaining phase is, what additional costs might come after this initial commitment?
The initial cost work that was completed throughout the pre-development process said that the infrastructure budget for the totality of this was roughly $4.5 million. And so the first phase, as it stands today, was about 1.5 million. But that's exactly what will get dialed in through this process. And so I would like to mention, because it ties nicely with that question, the pre-construction piece and the financial piece of this are going to be hand in glove. And so the schedule that I've laid out here is how the pre-construction can work. Financially, we may alter that a little bit depending on what, Heidi comes back with, because it all has to work together. I mean, just like we're not prepared to move forward today with this because we want to have that part buttoned up, that we need that information to make sure that we're recommending good decisions to you. We don't want to move ahead without that, because they're she's the one that is really validating, this and the ROI on it. And so, I intended to mention that when I talked about the schedule, but it ties nicely with your question to make sure that we hone in exactly on what that is, based on that work.
I've got two questions for you, Ryan. So just kind of rewinding the clock a little bit, the 50,000 that was initially secured with you guys, and what did that get us to compare to where we're at now, right? And we're talking another 530,000, right? So where does that fit into what we've done so far? Where does that?
Yeah, I mean, that got us to this point of having the site, having financial numbers, like I just mentioned, that are associated with it. And even, which we've talked with Barb and the team about, to say, is this even a possibility? I mean, if that would have been, let's say the cost was about 10 times that, right? And it would have just been like, no, we can't in good conscience recommend you go that far. That's only been through these conversations that we're not coming back. And so again, this is not an unanticipated thing to be here. It's like incremental risk, right? So if we would have come back and said, hey, our recommendation today is no go, there only would have been, not only, it's $50,000, but it's not 500, right? That would have been committed and spent. And there's a tendency in this type of work to want to jump right into this, right? Because this looks pretty, but it's not buildable. We can't bid anything. This is not engineered. This is an architect's rendering of that. But it's important in our work because what we're doing is taking this incremental approach, because if we came in and said, hey, we're going to do all the engineering and it's going to be 500, and we spend some portion of that, and then we get to a decision, well, this is not feasible, and that money's just gone. And so that's really I mean, it does slow down the timeline of it, but it's the risk that's what we're managing. So we wouldn't be here today without the work that has been done with that redevelopment.
Understandable. Second question I've got, just looking on Club 720 website, there's a lot of stuff that talks about down payment assistance, and some financial into that. How does this development side fit in with that? Is there some sort of link that these homeowners are gonna have to run through your mortgage partners, or are they gonna be able to get outside lending? Is there any sort of tie with that end of things?
Everything we offer is made available as a resource, but not a requirement.
Okay,
And so somebody could come in at one of these units and say, I got cash, and I wanna pay cash, and we hope they do.
yeah,
And they don't need any product or anything that any of our partners have. That's fine. We also are realistic and say, probably not gonna sell out a whole development without having some additional tools.
Sure.
And so what we do is our team works in the background to get as many partners, local and regional and not regional, on board. And that's what B Noble is leading then, to say it's not just going out to employers to reach the people, but who are lending partners, who are local realtors, what's the ecosystem, you're here, that I don't know, because I don't live here, but they have contacts, a lot of them are their members, and how do they bring them to the table so that we're tapping into that local ecosystem, but also if there are gaps in that ecosystem, then we've got tools that we can help fill that with.
and talking about the local, so when it comes to the development, building materials, right, anything as we move forward with that, is that something that we can do to make sure that we make a priority for Noble or LaGrange, right, and really adjacent contracting firms? Is that something that can be focused on? I mean, I think that, nothing against what Granite Ridge has done, right, and other developments within the city, but they hardly pull any sort of business from Noble County. And that's a shame. So that's something I would encourage, that as we move forward with anything, we make it a priority that it's Noble County businesses first, in this process, so.
What you'll see as we do that, and this goes back to Brian's earlier question about how we're structuring this, I mean, this is gonna be structured in a way that, and it's not all through Club 720, part of it will be through our development arm. It's called Mission Bill, that will be kind of the lead in having these different unit types. I mean, this will go from little squares to actual blueprints that can be constructed, that then we're engaging folks to build. So when it comes to we'll have a lot more control over who do we reach out to, who do we give the opportunity. I mean, and then we'll still make good financial decisions based on, what makes the most sense of, using these resources, but, we'll be able to have some level of control over who gets to hear the opportunity, and, how does that all work?
And some of your other projects has like this mixed site plan like this been successful. You kind of read some different, back and forth, and of course you look at different regions, right, or different areas of the country where sometimes these blended type housing developments can be polarizing, right, for some. How from some of your other projects, have you done some of these where they're blended with rentals and single family and more villa style? How's that been working?
Doing it this way has necessitated that we change our system. So when I was here last time, I talked about the Topeka development, and that was not designed this way. It was designed there were multiple types of units, but they're all pretty much single family detached. And what we've found is, we've really been at the mercy of who builds that and what's their capacity to be able to build that. And so in this iteration, we're now involving when we started Topeka, Mission Build didn't exist. We weren't going to do that. We were just looking for development partners, like we started off here, that we can get to that point. And we saw, there's developers that have expertise in one of those areas, but not necessarily all of them. So there's not as many that are willing to come in and say, we'll bite this off, especially in a market like Ligonier size, because they say, well, that's just too risky to do that. And so that's what then has necessitated us taking this next step to say, okay, we're gonna actually go so far as to do the, have the unit types that we know we're just gonna engage folks as builders. Because, they can build anything, right, with the right, if they've got a margin in it and there's the plans in place. And so I say all that to say, this is a real innovation that you all have led by, number one, signing off on the site design, but number two, having the fortitude and the patience to say, no, we're not gonna just sell. We've brought developers to your JDC and they've interviewed them and, ultimately have not felt strongly, and we've not recommended moving forward with any of us to bring it back to this group to say, hey, here's somebody that we believe is gonna make this a reality and feel really good about. And so we've gone back to the drawing board. That's been part of the time delay to say, you're very committed to this site and to these, and that's why I wanted to have it up to show it, because that is part of the uniqueness of this development that has made it, a little bit of a challenge. And so I think, standing here today, that what we have in front of you is going to be successful. And I ultimately think this will probably be a regional model on how you've done this that other communities are going to want to replicate. But I can't say, oh, hey, go over and look at this community because they've done it. Sure. They haven't.
What we did, Dave, initially, when we got the county study, and then we met, we kind of determined what we felt Ligonier needed, because we know we most of the apartments we have are subsidized. We don't really have too many apartments that aren't subsidized. So we knew we needed rental units because we have people looking for rental units all the time, but we also knew we needed housing. So we thought, why not try to incorporate all that into this, but keep the rentals up there, out there, or some other way. We may readjust it. We talked in our last meeting about possibly adjusting where some of these things are located and how they're built. But we needed some smaller homes for people who were wanting to downsize. We needed single family homes, and then maybe there's a few of them there that are like executive type homes that are at the back. Yeah. So we looked at that study, seeing the numbers, and kind of determined that's what it was. It's kind of what we did.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to talk about is just what you see here doesn't mean phase A is phase A, right?
Right.
We talked about in our committee meeting of using 33 to our advantage, doing part of A here and doing part of B that outlines 33 so people can see, because we really feel once we get something moving out there, it's going to take off. But why not develop where it can be seen and people interest are piqued, right? So looking at this, just don't get locked on phase A in this price. We would like to include a juggling event to include maybe a couple parts of this in phase A.
And that's where you're talking about optimizing that new market position.
Right.
That's correct, and being able to reevaluate that. Gotcha.
Now that new study may come back and say,
Right.
It's changed totally.
Right.
And we gotta be willing to say, I hope, we need to trust this because we had it done if it's different. Sure. Yeah.
And then the apartments too, it's not gonna be like one big building. They'd be built more to look like a house where it would have like 8 units, and is that what we thought, like
Yeah.
4?
Do you have a picture of one of those units, kind of what we had?
I don't think there was one in this.
I think there is one in.
Is there?
Well, was there or not?
I can't remember. It's been a while since I looked through the whole.
That might have been in the Zimmerman book presentation, not this one.
We didn't want it to look like just one massive apartment complex, for sure.
So
Kind of
that it
broke it
fits
out.
with the look of the.
Those
the
homes, yeah.
Yeah.
So they look like
Are those
homes.
small homes is that where C is, basically, the one, the kind of villa style, that would work, gotcha.
Yeah, it's in the Zimmerman book presentation, the apartments are, they look like kind of just large homes, like, that fit into it, but they've actually got multiple entry points there.
Sure.
And so it's the idea, it's not what you think of.
It's not like a factory building out there,
Yeah.
housing in it.
Yeah, so it fits in, and that's a national trend. We're not, that we're seeing and trying to figure out how we bridge the gap to make that work here. And, so that's one of the things that we'll, get out there.
Very much so.
Well, I think when Schrock builds theirs in their, waste would run, that's what they're gonna do too, when they do their apartments. It's gonna be more like a home.
Complexes versus
Put it
just
in
one
the
big huge.
duplexes there.
Which, let's face it, I mean, it always helps to have right when you start, when you drive past and you look at an open field, you're still like, yeah, how's that all gonna look, it's always a little bit of a challenge that way.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ryan, for your presentation today. Giving us a few pointers and reinforcing that, taking into consideration a May, signing up to this while we,
Yeah, so, no, these problems are back here, so we're hiring,
thank you for considering that. Our conversations with Ryan and Code 720 has been real rewarding. Relied on their experience to help us understand how these things work, and really appreciate that. Just in conversation, and I think it'd be wise on our part to postpone this as much as Ryan knows how much I push to be in a hurry for this. Of course, I like everybody else, I want it to happen tomorrow. And I know that's not possible. To table this until we have our meeting with Heidi and Lisa to make sure our finances are where we want them, and make sure they'll tell us whether we even can do it. So I would just make that recommendation, not necessarily a motion at this point, but topic for conversation, just to postpone any agreement today, wait till after the meeting.
I would second that and say I look forward to the May 13th meeting.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Any, environmental will be in touch probably between now and then. Any other questions, feel free to let me know.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ryan. I just wanted to, let the board know that, this, West School Corporation did get a market analysis done of the building. Before we proceed and decide what needs to be done, Noble Early Learning has asked, the state, we're meeting with Annette Jones, who's the emerging provider to the state, to conduct a walkthrough of the building this Thursday. I know Kennedy will be there, the director, Margarita, and myself, so we'll go through with her to determine what would need to be done in order to turn that back into a daycare, so that we can see if it is feasible for us to try to purchase that building from the school and then move forward with renovations. That's something I will also discuss with Heidi in our call today. We do have the construction of a daycare is in our plan, in our plan or our approved projects. But I'm pretty sure the purchase of the building would be as well, but I just want to confirm that and make sure, and if not, we could get all that, what we have to do for the other, to get the DRA to establish, do all that. So
We didn't want to construct either without the state coming in, and then if we constructed and her say, oh no, you should have done this. So
Yeah.
that was the other reason for having to stay here.
Very proactive.
yes, it's just see what has to be done, see if it's feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, going through the building, we did what we went through with core. I mean, it seems like the building seems like it should be able to be fixed. To go back to what it is going.
Oh, I felt that.
I think it should be, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure they have all their little idiosyncrasies that have to be done.
And Core did as well. I mean, they thought, yeah,
Yeah,
this is
they thought.
very feasible, so.
Okay, so that's just, I just wanted to feel it.
It is.
Marshmallow Festival?
Well, I put Marshmallow Festival because I thought that's what it was originally, but I think it's Noble County Community Foundation.
Well, and that's because Marshmallow Festival is a 501c4. You have to be a 501c3 to apply. So the foundation is applying as the fiscal sponsor for the festival. Plus, it'll catch the money, and that way, everybody gets their tax exempt letters. So, you have in front of you, some of you were at the city council meeting when I spoke last, and then you wanted me to come to the redevelopment commission to talk about this, application. So, I have the opportunity to apply for the festival. We're Ready to Arts and Culture Grant, and I had Barb send you yesterday the application that I went ahead and filled out, and I hope you were able to read it. What it calls for is some sculptures, and it's called the Ligonier Street Art Trail. And what it is to celebrate the city's identity as the home of the Marshmallow Festival. And so, you know, we've been, excuse me, celebrating the Marshmallow Festival for the last 35 years. This will be our 35th year. And so the trail would feature some whimsical, interactive, and historically inspired installations of some sculptures, some murals, and then we would get some regional artists to design some of these things. It also asks for some artistic wayfinding signs, some interactive storytelling kiosks, and some lighting for the nighttime art viewing of these art sculptures and things. And so this project will have some permanent public art infrastructure, some hopefully downtown revitalization, strong tourism appeal, and high visibility for community transformation. So what will it do? It will have the Marshmallow Festival at the forefront all year round for folks to see that Ligonier is the marshmallow capital of the world. So I'm hoping that it will help revitalize some downtown, you know, bring some of that back in. I do need the city of Ligonier to partner with the Marshmallow Festival on this. Visit Noble County is going to be a partner as well as the Community Foundation. Community Foundation plays the role of the fiscal sponsor. Possibly we are, well, I am going to apply for a grant from the Ligonier Marshmallow Festival to the foundation so that we hope to get one of those so that we can help pay for one of the sculptures or other infrastructure that we need for these sculptures. The lighting itself will be for the sculptures, but also possibly for the alley. I did put some information in there about the alley. Brian was supposed to send me the plans, but he didn't yet.
Brian just got the plans and will be forwarded.
So I can put more information in there about the alley, and what we're gonna do, what you're gonna do there. That will help boost the application. The idea about for this whole application is that we're bringing arts and culture down to downtown Ligonier, and we're gonna hope to revitalize a little portion of it and hopefully help inspire folks to keep coming down to Ligonier in the downtown area, spruce it up a little bit. Those of you that weren't here at the city council meeting didn't know, but we had close to 30,000 people coming to the festival, this last festival that we had, spending close to a little over $1 million here, not at the festival, but for the general services. So you're talking gas stations, restaurants, food, grocery stores, things, everything like that. And so that's a lot of people coming into the town. So if we can get them here for other things, not just for that weekend, then let's do it. And so my request to you is, one, that you partner with us to do this, and two, that you provide somebody from this committee to be on the committee to work on this with me and visit Noble County. And then three, I need a contact from the city that I can add to the application. And then fourth is that you will sign on as a financial partner as well. You're doing it already, and that could be a part that you put into this application, the funding that you're doing to that, later, like next year, or, if you have funding for other items that come across this application, I would appreciate if you would give additional, but, the alley itself is big, because if you're gonna do that and we can put a sculpture there, that would be great. Anybody have any questions on this application? Were you able to read it?
I did.
Yeah.
Were you asking us to contribute $100,000, because that was my.
Yes, but I don't know how much you're putting into the alley, so that was gonna be put into the application, because that alley was gonna be part of this application. And I didn't have the plans for the alley, that's why it's not fully in the application here.
So the plans that have been forwarded to you, those numbers shouldn't be used because that's been so long ago. And I think our theory has changed on that. It's gonna be smaller than we first planned, so, you've got them, but those are not concrete numbers to use.
Estimate to me how much you think the alley will cost.
What,
I have down here 100,000 from the city of Ligonier.
did we commit at 1,050,000 for that project?
We didn't make a commitment of a dollar.
Okay, I think that's what we had in mind.
Okay.
And it may be a lot cheaper than that. I don't think it would be any more than that. Especially with us downscaling the size of it and stuff like that, so.
It went from this simple thing originally to this grandiose thing that got so far out of control that that's why we really backed down on it. And then we had problems with buildings, we couldn't do that. Now the buildings have been repaired, so I really don't even know. I mean, I don't know how it is, but as far as making a commitment of that kind of money, I mean, the other projects that we have going on right now, the daycare
And the money
housing.
doesn't have to be in there today, like could be next year or in 2028.
The other thing would be that, this would also have to fall within the items which we have that call today. I mean, I did send a request to Baker Tilly and they said we need to speak with these leads. So, we'd have to make sure this would fall into a project that we are able to assist you with.
Yeah.
I would suppose it would be, economic development, so it could very well. It's, most of it's probably in the tip area. But I think we just have to get that clarification from them as to can these funds be used for that. As far as the dollar amount, I don't know with the other things that we have going on.
Yeah.
For $100,000 ask, it would have to be something we have to kind of look at. Normally, like, the city does our financial planning in a 5-year chunks. And we do that early in the year, so we didn't have this on our radar.
Yeah,
To
I
do.
didn't
I mean,
either.
the city I know doesn't have.
The one thing I
Commission
didn't,
would be the only.
the one thing I didn't realize, I'm glad you said it, is the alley contribution would go toward
Yeah, I
that.
didn't realize that.
That would be a lot better situation, I think, but,
Yeah, as we heard throughout this meeting, with our other two projects, with the Turning Point and our housing, things, until we, once again, speak with Heidi and Liz Lee, look at our overall 5-year plan and see what we can do. I would have trouble committing anything, at least today, until we hear from Heidi, especially Heidi, with our, considering our 5-year plan and the two big projects we have in mind right now.
But we had already talked about the alley, and if the alley is part of it, that's different. I just thought it was gonna be an ask for $100,000 and not realizing the alley would be part of it.
The
So
alley is
that would
part of
make a big difference,
It's
because
a
we
big
already
difference.
have the alley project on our radars.
Does the grant require a certain amount of match?
I think it's a 3-to-1, like it normally is. It's kind of like the Penny Ready grant.
So if we were hypothetically
hypothetically committing $50,000 to this alley project, that can be considered a match from the city. And that $50,000 match could just impact the total grant amount then, if we're looking at a 3-to-1.
3-to-1 private and 1-to-1 public.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Requirement says.
Barbara, you're still recommending we,
Well, I do need, no, we need to make sure.
the phone call today.
The project would fall within that. So I don't know what kind of a recommendation.
I mean, could we commit not
I
to
have to turn it
exceed,
in on April 15th.
April 15th.
commit not to exceed 50,000 contingent on eligibility of funds? And then that.
And then the
phone
project.
call today, yeah.
So, that motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
I have a motion.
To commit,
Commit up to, not to exceed $50,000 contingent on our ability to use those funds for that purpose.
Dave, you made a second?
Yes.
Second by Dave. Any further discussion on this? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thing I would need is somebody to volunteer to be the name from the city to be on this listing on a part of the committee. You'll see on the page 6, you'll be one of the partners, you're partnering, and then it wants to know, like, the role that you're playing, so you'll be playing the funder, but also be on the committee. So you'll decide that.
And it would
Amongst
be the
yourself.
RDC though, not the city,
It would be the
Correct.
redevelopment, okay.
right? We just do the president.
Do what?
Would you, I mean, just.
I mean, it's just the name of
president?
the application, you can name somebody else to be on the committee.
My name on the application. Okay.
And then I'll get your email address.
which one of you wants to volunteer to be on the committee? I'm just gonna take myself off the table because I'm spread too thin already.
Yeah, I will. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Any other questions?
Good. Thank you.
Go ahead. And once I add the alley part to this, I'll resend it to Barb so she can send it to all of you and you can look at it.
Thank you.
Down to board member comments. Wait.
I think it was a great idea that we had somebody come that was interested in those 30 acres. There's a second company that's come forward that, would be interested in that as well, so when we get the, estimates of that, I think we could be moving forward, in a positive situation. Yeah. So there are two interests now. 30 acres west of
Yeah.
Horse River's property.
Sure. The increase we've already, right? Close to.
Anybody else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or adjourned.
Motion.
He's
motion.
second.